Hey folks, Technivorous here. Today we are taking a look at the Ender 3 version 2. This is my machine. It is pretty heavily modded so far, and if you'd like to get your hands on these mods, I will put a link in the description down below, and you'll be able to grab any of them that you want. As you can see, there is a lot of possibilities here. Now originally, this screen was on this side here. There was a different cover, and we've done a few other things such as the side-mounted spool and the SD card slot holder on top. But this video is not about mods. This is our review, so we're going to jump right into it right now. I will let you know, stay tuned at the end of this video. I will give you instructions on how to find the video link to enter and win your own Ender 3 version 2. It's pretty simple. It does take a little bit of work on your part, but hey, nothing is free. Let's jump right into it on 3D Thursday. The Technivorous channel is brought to you by these fine Patreon supporters. Alright, so before we get too far into this, let's discuss a few of the differences between this printer and the Ender 3 Pro. So, one of the things that you'll notice right off the bat is this little drawer down here. Now this is an addition that is very nice. It holds all the tools, keeps them nearby. You don't have to put the tools in there, you can use it for whatever you wish, but it does fit the wrenches, the pliers, and the other necessary components quite easily. And there's even a slot down here where you can hide a few extra nozzles or things like that. Now, a lot of the additions they made to this printer that weren't on the Ender 3 and Ender 3 Pro are things that people had made for modifications for their printer, and they decided to take what they felt was the best of those options and then add them to the printer as stock. So there is a new belt tensioner system on both the X and Y axis, and they work really, really well. One of the other main differences is the bed is not the same. It's not a glass bed, it's not a magnetic bed. Technically it's a glass, it's a polycarbonate glass, and it is very, very nice. Things stick to it really easily and they come off really easily. So all of these models that you see here were printed on this machine. This is the original test print that I printed. That was my first print and it came out almost flawlessly. Very, very nice. And as you can see, there are several mods that I printed. So the difference in print profiles between this and my Ender 3 Pro is pretty much non-existent. I did just use my Ender 3 Pro profile. I made a few minor tweaks that I'm not even sure were necessary, and it's been happy printing since then. So as you can see, the beautiful Black Panther here, this one took a little while, but it came out very nice as well. And all of the mods that are on this machine were printed by this machine. So that includes the micro SD slot card holder, the side spool back there, the hot end cover, and the case for the LCD screen. Now, this LCD screen is one of the main changes they've made from the Ender 3 Pro, and it is now a full color LCD. It is still not a touchscreen, but there are some pretty interesting things in there. We'll get into that in just a minute. And the other mod that is on here is the left side mount. So this is a little bit larger than the right side mount that comes with the printer. So this mounts right here. And the nice thing about this guy is it's adjustable. I do also have, this is a part done by Pugwash, which is pretty much a replica of the original, and it has some slots here for adjusting the angle of the screen, which is very, very nice. And there are a lot of things that you can do with this. So one of the other nice things that's different between this and the Ender 3 or Ender 3 Pro is the springs right off the bat are a little bit stiffer. So they're a little bit easier to adjust and get right where you want. In fact, I leveled this machine once, and I didn't need to level it again until I replaced the wheels. I had printed some modded wheels and put them on as well. I ended up taking them off because, well, you know, honestly, I don't really have a reason. I think I just they're a little bit bulkier than I wanted them to be, so I went back to the stock. So I did re-level it one more time after that, of course, and I haven't had to mess with it much since. One of the other additions is this extruder knob here. This thing comes in handy because it's easy to back the filament out or feed the filament in. As long as you get it in between the tooth gear and the pulley, you can pretty much just work it with the extruder knob. One of the other advantages of that is you can see which way your extruder is spinning and ensure that everything's working properly. Not that we really have problems with extruders on these machines. And on the note of the extruder, it is still the same plastic extruder that came on the Ender 3 and Ender 3 Pro, but they did make a minor addition to the inlet where the filament goes in. They have now encompassed that with metal to reduce the wear and grinding. One of the first things I had to replace on my original Ender 3 Pro was the extruder itself, because with the filament mounted up top, and that plastic piece being the receiver, it tended to rub, and eventually just wore a hole through the lever. So I replaced the Ender 3 Pro version with an aluminum extruder. I don't think I'm going to need to make that fix on this printer because, as I said, it is lined with metal in there, and I can get some of these parts out of the way now that you've had a good look. We'll actually turn this and take a peek. If I don't knock over my models, I kind of forget that spool is there sometimes. And I know it's a little bit hard to see, but if you look right there, you can see a brass fitting inside the hole where the filament goes. So that is very, very nice. I actually currently at the moment have this spool holder on backwards. It should be the other way for a more direct feed, but I'm not too worried about that. It's been working pretty well. So what are the advantages of this machine over the Ender 3 Pro? Well, you get a 32-bit board for one. They are starting to send those 32-bit boards out with the stock Ender 3 and Ender 3 Pro as well. But this is a very, very robust machine. It's got basically the same build and frame, but there are some crucial additions. And we've gone over most of them already, such as the upgraded tensioners and the metal in there. One of the nicest advantages we have here, let me plug this guy in. I don't have it hooked up right now. There we go, we'll plug it in. The power switch is now back here, and they've also moved the power unit itself to be under the machine. Now that was another mod that was available for the Ender 3 Pro, that you could print a bracket and mount it there using the T-locking nuts, and they decided to just go with that. So instead of having it sitting up on the side here, it is now in the back. Let's go ahead and turn it on. The power switch is way back here where the plug-in is. They've also made some upgrades to cable management on the original Ender 3. Where the bed connects to the cable, there was a clamp holding it in place, and they have recessed that from the bed a little bit. They've moved it back a little bit because it would either melt or wiggle loose. And in fact, if you have seen any of my previous videos, the bed had gotten so hot that the solder yanked right out of that bed on the Ender 3, and I really don't think I'm going to have any issues of the sort here. The other thing is they include these beautiful clips. These clips are really sturdy, and you really only need 2 of them to hold the glass in place, and it works really, really well. Now, I'm really impressed with this surface. Even as I touch it now, I've never applied any sort of adhesive or anything, but it feels a little bit tacky. Not sticky, but you can tell it's got good grip, so it's very, very nice. We'll get Black Panther out of the way here, and you can get a nice view of the printer, and we can see the screen here as well. Now, you can't really tell from the video that this is a color screen, but trust me, it is. There are some really subtle blue notes in here, and there are some firmware updates you can do that will give you more color options. But one of the coolest things is the way that it is easier to navigate. So you're using the same control knob and the same button, but you're getting a lot more options in here, and there are some other things as well. So it'll tell you the firmware version. It gives you contact details in case you need to get a hold of Creality.com. And it'll tell you the size of the printer. So the build volume on this printer is 220 by 220 by 250, which is pretty much in line with the Ender 3. If you got the Ender 3 Pro, you might have ended up seeing a build volume of 230 by 230 by 250. That is with the additional width of the magnetic bed on top, and the build plate on that is actually the exact same size as this one. So those are the differences between this printer and the Ender 3 and Ender 3 Pro. Right now, let's jump over and check out the other specs on this machine aside from the build size. Alright, so here we are on the Creality website. This is Creality.com, that website I just mentioned in the information panel of the LCD. If you take a good look at this here, you can see the stock version. So it has the black hot end cover here, and it has the right side LCD display. As you can see, it is very, very tilted back. So that's one of the reasons that I like Pugwash's mod that'll tilt that forward. But it worked just fine like that, and there were never really any issues. It's more of an aesthetic thing. The same reason I moved it to the left. So let's check out some specs here. So we're going to go ahead and roll down through all of this nonsense. Excuse me. So the glass bed is a I always mispronounce this. I mispronounced it earlier too. Carborundum glass. Okay. So it's very, very strong. It enables the hotbed to heat up quicker and prints it here better without warping. I can testify to that. I've had a very, very good experience with this build surface, and to be honest, I was in love with the magnetic mat on the Ender 3 Pro, but this is far, far superior. It's also equipped with a new self-developed silent motherboard. Creality developed this in-house, and I can tell you this machine is super duper quiet, which is really, really nice. It is way quieter than the Ender 3 Pro is as stock. Now, the Ender 3 Pro, you can get some aftermarket parts to make it quieter, but this one comes quiet right off the bat. So they added the knob to the extruder, pretty simple addition, and the Ender 3 V2 do-it-yourself 3D printer, blah blah blah. You got the toolbox under the hotbed as well. These are things that we were already going over. So here are the actual technical specifications. It is an FDM machine, which means it's going to use filament and not resin. It's rated to take PLA, TPU, and PETG. You can also print ABS on this machine, but it does not have an enclosure, so you're going to want to worry about those toxic fumes and maybe close it off somehow in order to prevent your print from warping or cracking. But it is definitely doable, as it was on the Ender 3. Filament diameter is the standard 1.75, and it works great with Cura, which is the software that it's shipped with. It actually sends you a special version of the software that is Creality Slicer, and that is basically just a port of Cura 4.2, which is very, very stable and works really well. Just has some Creality logos added to it. They're talking about the Ender 3 version 2 3D printer hardware now, and it's going to talk about the machine size. Now note that this is not the build size, this is the size of the actual profile of the machine. So it weighs about 8 kilograms, which is around 16 pounds, not too heavy, and it can be switched between AC 115 and 230 volt, so that is nice as well. In the US we use 110, so the 115 setting works here really well for us. And then you have some recommendations. So the recommended layer thickness is 0.1 to 0.4. The print precision is plus or minus 0.1 millimeters. The hotbed temperature is less than or equal to 100 degrees. So I've never really had to turn my bed up past 60 or 70 degrees, depending on what I was printing with. But I have tested the Ender 3 Pro and cranked it all the way up to 100. It does work pretty well. And if you want to know more about that, you can look at our Demagnetizing the Magnetic Bed Myth video, where we talk about extended heat for a long time on the bed, making the magnet come loose. It doesn't really happen. You need to do that for a really long time. With this printer, that's not a worry at all, because as I said, you're using the Carborundum, the glass. I always mispronounce it. I'll get it right eventually. They do have some live chat and support, but I will tell you that this printer right here is probably the most user-friendly printer you will ever see. So the nice thing about the Ender series is a very, very heavy internet presence. They have a lot of groups on Facebook that are dedicated to helping people run these machines, and the community is rather large. So it's really, really easy if you're having problems to pop online and ask a question and get your answer and get things taken care of pretty quickly. Down here at the bottom, they have a few simple links on how to level your bed, how to heat the nozzle, how to load filament, things like that, which filament will support. This is all pretty standard stuff. You're going to level it the same way as pretty much any other FDM 3D printer. It's got the wheels underneath and the springs for leveling the bed. And that is basically it for specifications on this guy. So let's jump back over and take a look at some of the models we've made. Alright, so we are talking about models. And as I said, a lot of these blue parts that you see on here did not come stock. So this here, this knob, the knobs on the belt tensioners and the extruder knob here did come in that pretty blue color, and I happen to have a filament that was really close to that blue, and I thought matched it really well. So when I printed this part, the hot end cover and the top, I used that blue. You can see that I also used it here on this dragon head. This is one of my test prints I used to calibrate my printer, and as you can see, I also did this guy in black because I was changing some settings. They both came out really nice. The blue was a little bit better because this was my regular stock Ender 3 Pro profile. This was after I made a couple of adjustments. I believe I shortened the retraction by about 1/2 millimeter and a couple other minor things. This guy, like I said, came out really, really well. As you can see, you can hardly see the layer lines in this, which is amazing. Now this was done at 0.16 millimeters, which is not the smallest layer height, excuse me, but it's pretty small. I mean, as we saw earlier, the recommended layer height was between 0.1 and 0.4, so this is at the low end which is going to take more time, but you're going to get finer detail and you're going to have less finishing work as far as sanding out those layer lines and making it smooth. Now this one hasn't been post-processed at all. In fact, this is directly off of the machine with the chin support removed. So you can see it is a very, very fine machine. And if I bring this a little bit closer, we can get a little bit better look. And obviously it could use a little cleanup in some places. There are a couple little burrs and things like that. But for the most part, you can't even really tell this was printed. I don't see layer lines. I don't see artifacts. You can see a little bit of layer lines down here in this flat surface, as well as a little bit of striation from the polygons of this cylinder that's holding it up. But that is more the model here. So that's really the only evidence you're going to get of the fact that this is printed. Very, very, very slight layer lines. So it does fine detail really, really well, and it does intricate work really, really well as well. So this is something that I'm working on that's going to be a light box eventually. I have a couple more pieces to print, these square pieces, and we'll be pretty good to go. You should see a video up on this pretty soon. It should be a pretty interesting project. I did build that from scratch myself, although I will admit I got the idea from something that I saw on Etsy that a friend of mine showed me and had made a request for. The other thing I added was, since I moved the spool holder from the top where it's normally mounted, I added an SD card holder, which is really nice because it keeps them all organized, keeps them all right here. So the standard tools that come with this machine when you order it are the Allen keys. You get a set of Allen keys, you get a pair of pliers, wire cutters here, you get a little flathead screwdriver for doing minor tweaks and adjustments, as well as the 2 wrenches. Now one of these wrenches is for taking on and off the couplers to the Bowden tubes, and the other one is for changing the nozzle on the hot end itself. So that's basically the gist of this printer, guys. Now if you want me to give this printer a rating, I'm obviously going to rate it very high. I will tell you, when I originally had the Ender 3, then I went through a bunch of other printers, and I really didn't see what the big deal was with the Creality Ender 3. I mean, it's a great printer, don't get me wrong, but the community that follows it are pretty much fanatics and really are only beaten in their fanaticism by the Prusa community. After trying the Tevo Tarantula Pro and a few other printers, I decided that, in my eyes, they were all pretty much equal because they're all the same build and things like that. Then they sent me the Ender 3 version 2, and this thing is far and away a whole different beast. I mean, it looks the same, it's the same structure, same build, but they put so much love into this machine, and they changed so many of the little details to be just the way that the community has requested them to be, and they took all of the community's best ideas and incorporated them into the version 2. So this is definitely an upgrade from an Ender 3 or an Ender 3 Pro. And I will tell you right now that this machine probably blows away any other printer that I have in my shop right now. So that includes printers from ANET, obviously. You have the Tevos, you have the FL Sun. I got a new printer from Mingda 3D the other day, and a couple of others. If you're going to be buying a new printer and you're in the $250 range, this guy is your best bet. You will not be disappointed with this printer. And if you have any issues, as I said, the support community is an excellent bonus to it's a great reason to get this printer because you can get all the help you need, and those people are amazing. They're anxious to show you their knowledge and teach you how to use this thing and show you the little tricks and intricacies that you may not know. So for a beginner, this is probably hands down the best printer that you can get for under $400. That is my opinion, and I'm sticking by it. So my review of this guy, I got to give it a 5 out of 5. It is an amazing machine. I haven't found a single thing about it that I don't like. And in fact, all of the subtle changes that you see here are things that, in the end, really add to the printing experience with this machine. So I'm very, very happy with it. Creality has done a bang-up job on this one, and I really don't think you're going to best this printer for the price. So that's basically it, guys. This is my review of the Ender 3 version 2. You want the verdict? Go out and get one because this is hands down the best machine that I've used in a long time. I will say that if you'd like to get your hands on one of these, I am running a contest right now where I'm giving one away. Like I said earlier, you will have to do a little bit of work for it. It involves posting in some social media forums, and pretty simple, pretty easy to enter, and the bottom line is it doesn't cost you anything. So if you're interested in that, I will put a link up right here. you can go ahead and click that card, and it'll bring you to the video explaining the rules for contest entry. Once that goes away, I got another link right here. Go ahead and click that one if you want to see all the mods I made for this. In that video, you'll see the mods, you'll see how they get put on, as well as the links to find them on Thingiverse and My Mini Factory. This has been a great experience for me. I really look forward to trying other Creality machines. This is not my second machine or third machine. It is my fourth machine from Creality, and I have yet to be disappointed with them, to be honest. But this machine really blows away all the other FDM machines I've seen. So I can't stress that enough. Like I said, I think there's some Ender 3 fanboys out there that are a little bit overzealous about the Ender 3 and the Ender 3 Pro. They're great machines, don't get me wrong. But all of the things that bugged me or caused issues on that machine have been taken care of by this beast right here, and all of the minor details that didn't have anything wrong with them have pretty much been improved as well. So when you consider the fact that they've moved a couple pieces, added a few things, it might seem like minor changes, but when you're dealing with these printers on a daily basis and you're trying several different kinds, seeing something like this where they listen to the community and follow their advice and kind of build on that is a really, really nice thing to see, because that means that they're not just mass producing and shoving out printers. They're taking the community into account and seeing what people want and what people need and acting on it, which is a great thing to see from a company who we put a lot of trust and respect in. So go out, get yourself an Ender 3 version 2. You will not be disappointed. That is going to be it for this video, guys. I will see you next time, and I hope you enjoyed this 3D Thursday. Well, that's it, guys. That's going to wrap up this video. If you've noticed the shirt, the merch is available. Go ahead and check out the Teespring merch link down below. It won't be available on a channel store until I reach 10,000 subscribers, and so far I am just about to hit 5,000. So it'll be a little while, a couple more months before you see this on the actual channel, but they are available now. I have a couple other designs. Feel free to pop over there and check them out, and know that any purchase through the Teespring site definitely helps to promote our site here and increase the channel's ability to make videos in the future. So we appreciate all your support. Don't forget to check out the Teespring link, check out our Patreon link, leave a like on this video, and hit that subscribe button, because we have a lot more coming at you in the coming days.